raise the debt limit and put us on a path to get our spending under control that has been harming the American families. He told me at that meeting, and he tweeted later, that he agreed that we would meet. I saw him the very next day at the prayer breakfast. He said we would meet. He told the members there we were going to meet. He then apparently must have changed his mind. For 97 days, he denied our ability to meet together. I wanted to work out a negotiation, an agreement that we could do something bipartisan, that we would not be at this moment today about the debt ceiling. But because they refused, we went on our own and we put a bill together, as you remember watching. I tried to find ideas that Democrats have proposed. Joe Manchin had proposed capping spending going into the future at 1% growth. We put that in. The president, as a senator, had voted for work requirements. In Wisconsin just a couple months ago, they passed by 82%. We looked at common sense ideas like pulling back the COVID money that wasn't spent, especially after the president had signed the bill that the pandemic was over. Even the World Health Organization has now announced the pandemic is over. We looked at places for growth, that we could cut red tape so we can build things in America again. And we raised the debt ceiling. The Senate has not, and we sent it to the Senate. What's so remarkable is, in this presidency, with this new Congress, this is the very first time he has sat down with all four leaders. Of all the challenges that we have in America, with Title 42 being lifted and the border unsecure, with 3 of the 4 largest banks' failures happening in the last few months because of inflation and the rise of the interest rates, with the Democrats spending too much, we never met. We only met today because the House did the responsible thing and raised the debt ceiling, put growth, and gave us savings. Unfortunately, in this meeting, I heard nothing new. I literally asked the president personally, do you believe there's any place in government we could find savings? I know they said things that were not true about how we would move forward. And I had to explain to the president, the only thing we're asking is that next year we spend the same amount of money that we spent 5 months ago. And we let appropriators decide how we dole up that money, just like every other household. I didn't find progress in this meeting. Staff will continue to meet, and we'll get back together on Friday, and hopefully the president then can change the path of the last 97 days. With that, let me open up with questions. Yes, ma'am.
What are the meetings of staff? What are they going to be talking about specifically?
To see if we could find places that we could find savings and be able to come to an agreement on a debt ceiling.
Do you plan to have like an entire budget framework in order to lift the debt limit?
Well, this is interesting because I don't want to confuse the people at home. A budget is different than a debt ceiling, okay? So a budget only does 2 things. Most people would assume a budget is like an estate capital, where you pass a budget in a house, it goes to the Senate, and the president signs it. In Congress, that's not how it works. A budget only sets the dollar figure, the 302As for those on the inside, of how much you would spend. And that's what we're talking about, what we spent 5 months ago. That is something that we would have to work out in a debt ceiling. It's much like what Nancy Pelosi did when she was Speaker, where she told President Trump that we could not raise the debt ceiling until we get the spending levels agreed to. Now, they advocated for more money, and then they advocated for $6 trillion more, and then they brought us inflation and the problems we have today. It's the exact same thing we're trying to work through.
So budget cap.
Could you explain?
Yes.
Excuse me, just if you could explain.
Yes.
You're meeting, but you guys, the White House still, in your telling, won't accept a deal alongside the debt limit. So,
well, the president tries to say, okay, I'll do a budget agreement, but the debt ceiling has to be just raised. Well, every way we do this, all the times before, is you do the agreement together. I tried to explain that to him. You know, the president, when he was vice president, they were the Biden negotiations. The president, when he was senator, he voted against raising the debt ceiling. When he was vice president, our debt was $14 trillion. Today it's $31 trillion. And he said then that we got to take care of it, the debt, because it's too large. We got to find ways that we could find savings. He literally voted against the debt ceiling when he was senator because he said, I didn't care about how it was created, but we're not doing enough to stop this. And now today he thinks differently. So whatever goes forward is not just going to be raising the debt ceiling. It's going to be just like we did in the House. We will raise the debt ceiling with doing changes within our spending. Yes.
Are you willing to do a short term that?
No. Yes.
Are you going to continue to stand by George Santos now that he's been indicted on federal charges? And will you stand by President Trump after a jury found him liable on sexual abuse?
I'm not going to avoid your question, but as you know, I've been at the White House. I haven't seen the indictment, but as you know, with George Santos, I did not put him on any committees. For those like Senator Menendez, who was indicted and went to trial, he was still able to vote, and others. I believe he's a chairman of a committee today. In America, we'll just follow the same pattern we always have, right? If a person is indicted, they're not on committees, they have the right to vote, but they have to go to trial. If, just like we had a member of Fortenberry, he had the same ability. I removed him from committees, but he was found guilty, and I told him he needed to resign. That is my policies and principles on this, and I'd follow the same pattern.
And Trump being found
Yes.
Why not?
I don't. I've been in meetings. I don't know about that.
Why not have this fight in the spending process, which you're talking about? You're going to have control over that. Why do you need the lever of the debt limit?
You know, that's a great question. And so the Democrats have done nothing in the Senate, so we passed it in the House. Now, if I only listened to Schumer and to Nancy Pelosi, they said you always had to do it now. If I follow history and I follow Vice President Biden, he said you had to do it then. And I really think when we sit back and look at the American public, when you think about a debt ceiling, it really is giving your children a credit card. So you're responsible for paying the credit card when they hit the limit, but I think you also need to be the responsible adult to look how they're spending the money. Why would you want to continue? If you're at $31 trillion in debt, that's larger than your entire economy by 20%. We've never been here before outside of World War II. And then if you look at our expenditures and our revenues, this is a really good thing that we should have this discussion as a whole Americans, right? So for the last 50 years, on average, we would spend roughly 21% of our GDP. Now, how much money would we bring in? On average, in the last 50 years, we would bring in about 17% of our GDP. Right now, we're about 20%. That's a lot of money. That's the most money we've ever had coming in. Now, we've only had in modern history 2 other times have we hit this highest percentage. That was in 1944 and 2000. So we have more money coming in. But how can this be a problem then? Because the Democrats, when they took the majority and they increased it by $6 trillion, they're now spending 23, 24% of the GDP. For 21 straight years, we have spent more money than we brought in. So you want us to continue down this same path? How can you look at your children or grandchildren? How can you simply say to them that I've wasted your future? And the country is too important. And is it so draconian that we would pull back hardworking taxpayers' money that we spent on COVID that wasn't spent? We appropriated, there's 50, 60 billion sitting there. They had 2 years to spend it, the pandemic's over. Shouldn't you bring that back to save? Wouldn't you do that in a family? Is it so crazy that you would spend the amount of money you spent 5 months ago? If you had a household and you hit your credit card's max and you were spending more than you were bringing in, wouldn't you simply say, maybe I shouldn't go to Starbucks tomorrow? Maybe make that coffee at home, right? Maybe we'd find something that we can eliminate our waste. Well, this is hard-working taxpayer money. Us as elected officials should do that, and I think this is the appropriate time.
What's your level?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
said earlier the U.S. is not going to default. He seemed pretty unequivocal. Are you in the same posture?
Well, I
Not happening?
think he says that because he saw the House take action. I mean, the reason why we could be so positive is because we didn't take the president's advice just to ignore everything. I mean, think about what's happening, okay? You got banks failing. Why? Because they spent so much money. Inflation happened, interest rates went up. Silicon Valley Bank failed. 3 of the 4 largest banks' failures have just happened in the last 3 months. But the president never called the 4 leaders down. You've got millions of people coming across our border. Do you realize in the month of February, We caught more people coming across our border illegally on the terrorist watch list than we caught the entire time during the last administration. Do you feel safer because of it? And now we watch hundreds of thousands of people ready to come on Thursday. Does the Democrats or the president have a bill to solve this problem? No, because he wouldn't meet. But we will pass one this week, just like we said when they told us before the debt limit was going to happen in July or August. We didn't want to put anybody in debt. We didn't want to put anybody in a challenge. So we passed something in April, even though the president wouldn't talk to us. So if McConnell's saying that, that's why I feel comfortable too, because we took action. Now, I haven't seen anything out of the Senate, and I don't know what the Senate needs. If if Schumer needs to put in that important bill he passed in March about naming March the Maine maple syrup month, I'll put that in. Or if he wants to look at honoring UConn for winning a basketball game, if that's what he needs that he's worked so much time on, we'll put that in too, because I think it's too important to the American public. That's why we've taken action. Yes, sir.
There's several news organizations reporting tonight that George Santos is facing federal criminal charges that will be indicted tomorrow.
You came late, didn't you? But go ahead, keep asking. I'm sorry. I don't want to point it out, but go ahead.
If that's the case, should he resign?
Well, this is a good question, because if I look at the history in Congress, like you look over at Chairman Menendez, he got indicted too, right, from New Jersey? He's the chairman of a committee today, right? So I think in America, you're innocent until proven guilty, but what we've watched in past behavior here too, when there was another member indicted, I removed committee. I never put Santos on any committee. That member did get not just indicted, but was found guilty. I told him he had to resign. I would keep that same with any member here, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat.
Are you optimistic?
Yes, ma'am.
We've seen more mass killings now in Texas, and over the past few weeks, we've also seen young people killed when they were turning around in the wrong driveway, knocking on doors. What do you say to people who say that it's simply too easy to get a gun? People are not responsible with them, especially high-powered AR-15s and those kind of military assault weapons.
Now, I don't know all the background on the travesty that just happened in Texas, but what I've read so far, he was dishonorably discharged from the military, was he not? So he wouldn't qualify to be able to have that weapon. So then you want to find why was he, even though you have a law now that he shouldn't have had that. I mean, I think as an entire country, we've got to have a conversation. There's not one thing that's going to solve this. There are many challenges here. And this has gone on too long, too hard. And I mean, we got to take the politics out of it. Innocent people are dying, and we're going to have that discussion. Now, we had a law on the books, and don't quote me because I don't know all the facts here yet. It's just some things I read. Because we've watched, there was a shooting in Texas before in a church, devastating. It's almost, from what I've read so far, could be very similar, where this person was dishonorably discharged, and the military themselves didn't update. So I know Republicans were in the majority of the time, and I was majority leader. We changed the law to make sure that update so he couldn't. Now, I want to get the facts here too, but we've got to have a really honest discussion here. Yes. Yes. I think the whole nation should be leading. Yes, sir.
Question on the debt ceiling. Just bottom line, after today's meeting, are you closer to resolving this problem or further apart?
Well, we met. So that's closer because for 97 days the president wouldn't meet. Could you imagine that? Being president, being leader of the free world, knowing you got a debt ceiling coming. You even had been the Biden negotiation. You voted for and against these before, and you wouldn't meet? I can't imagine being president and leader of the free world with all the challenges this country has, that as leaders we hadn't got together. You know, Hakeem Jeffries is the leader of the Democrats. I respect him greatly. You know, we meet almost every week that we're in session. I try to get together with him. I call him when we're out sometimes. And we're not going to agree, but I think it's responsible that we talk with each other. He'll tell me times he disagrees. I'll tell him times. But we got to have that communication. And I like the relationship that we have. He can tell me where things are wrong, but we talk about ways that we can move forward. And if you truly believe just debt ceiling is as important as I think it is, why would you have gone silent for 97 days? Why would you tell me one thing that we're going to meet and then not? Paul! Oh, you got a haircut, looks good.
Do you think he just disrespects you?
I don't know, you'd have to ask him that question. Do you think he does?
No, I don't know.
I don't know, but you asked the question, you think?
I'm asking you because you were at the meeting.
But you asked the question. That would have never come to my mind. You must think that.
I'm basing it off of what you just said. You were angry that.
Oh, no, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I just think as an American, wouldn't you think that would be wrong? Or do you think he shouldn't have met with me for 97 days?
Well, I'm asking you.
Well, I know, I'm asking you back.
Sure, great.
But I know you wrote about this, so you must have an opinion. Do you not? But let me ask you, because you've studied politics for a long time. You could probably teach in a college course, I'm sure. But regardless of who's speaker and who's president, and you have a debt ceiling coming up, even if you have the other leaders, if you were in that position, wouldn't you meet? And if you met on February 1st and you told the person you met with that we're going to get together again, and then you saw that person the next day at the prayer breakfast and you sat next to that person and you grabbed their arm, said, we're going to do this. And then you went up to the microphones and you talked to all the members and you told them, Kevin's a decent guy. We're going to meet again. And you tweet about it. You literally put in a tweet that you said you decided you were going to meet. Would you assume that you were going to meet them? I mean, regardless of who that person is, I would think that. And I would think of all the challenges in the country, the four leaders would get together with the president sometime. Now, I'm not offended that he doesn't do it, but I think as an American, when you're looking at a debt ceiling now coming to January 1st, I am so thankful that the House then acted. We're the only body that has raised the debt limit.
Everyone in that room focused on the June 1 deadline and trying to get something done before that. Will the House bring another bill?
Why would we? See, the way I look at it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the House will pass a bill, the Senate can pass a bill, and it could be on any topic, and then you'd go to conference, and you'd make a decision. The time is of the essence. I mean, I would do that, but Schumer hasn't passed anything. So, I mean, we could negotiate and then pass something.
Biden said, he just said at his press conference he has considered the 14th Amendment. Is that something you'd be opposed to? Or?
Well, yeah. I mean, really think about this. If you're the leader of the free world, if you're the only president and you're going to go to a 14th Amendment to look at something like that, I would think you're kind of a failure of working with people across sides of the aisle or working with your own party to get something done.
Did he tell you guys that he was going to do that?
No. He didn't bring that up.
Would you sue?
Yes.
On the policy provisions, you mentioned permitting or requirements.
Those are just some of them, yeah.
Was the president open? Did you have a discussion in the meeting about those policy provisions, and was there any openness from the president to include something like that?
I don't want to put words in his mouth, but some that he had looked at. I mean, look, if I look at work requirements, he voted for that before. So why would he have a problem now?
Did it come up?
Yeah, I brought him up. I brought a number of them up. He didn't commit to any of them, but he thought permitting was something they could work on. But you could take it for this.
On the fiscal 22 spending levels, is that a red line for you, or are you open to negotiation on that?
Look, I'm not going to negotiate with myself. That's what we passed. I really don't think it's draconian if we spend the amount of money we spent 5 months ago. And if you put it in a historical perspective. So when presidents propose their budgets, they go out 10 years, right? So the last budget that then Obama and Biden proposed, and you look just a number of years out, which would be this year, what we go back to in 2022 would be higher than what they would be spending now. So I think that's a pretty good, because they proposed spending less, thinking that would be enough. So, I don't know, maybe he wants to negotiate lower. I'd do that too.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
you said you didn't hear anything new in the meeting.
No.
Yet there are new meetings happening, both staff and the leaders with the president. Do you not hold out any hope of these talks succeeding?
Well, let me give you a background, okay? So the president called me after we passed our bill. Do any of you think we would have the meeting today if we hadn't passed our bill? I didn't think so. I even raised that. The only reason the staff has met one time is because after he requested that meeting, I said, yes, I'd come to it. I sent him a letter. I didn't send it to any of you. I didn't make it public. And I requested, could the staff get together before our meeting today so we could work on things so it would be more productive? I'm really concerned about the timeline. That's why we passed the bill. That's the only reason the staff has met one time. Now, we have agreed to the staff to meet again and for us to come back on Friday to see if something else could happen.
Speaker McCarthy.
Yes.
Democrats say that the meetings that are going forward are separately about spending. Are you willing to negotiate these kind of on a dual track where you have maybe a separate spending agreement that would pass independently of the debt ceiling bill to kind of appease both sides?
I don't know politically what they think they have to say, but just like when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, I can give you the quote from 2019, that her caucus, the Democratic caucus that Hakeem Jeffries sat in and Schumer, that they cannot pass a debt ceiling without negotiating the budget agreement. It's the same way we've done it every other time. I don't know why they changed it. I mean, even if you go back to Schumer, even when he was in the minority, in 2017, he said the debt limit's the only leverage we have. The concerning is that Schumer's whole approach was to wait till the final deadline and take America to the brink. I've been trying to do this from the day I became Speaker, so we wouldn't be at this day today. Not successful because he wouldn't meet with us for 97 days. We're going to do everything in our power to try to get this solved.
Speaker McCarthy,
Yes.
can you tell us just a little bit about what it was like inside the room? What was the tenor and tone, and were you able to confront the president on any of the concerns you've raised about how he's framing the issues, veterans, any of these other issues?
Look at, oh yeah, he brought up the veterans. It's a lie. I mean, what's so interesting, you all wait. The Milcon bill will come out next week, and you'll see money is higher for the veterans than it was before.
Did you tell him that?
Yes.
And
So what's happening here is, that you all know it, you've covered this for a long time. This is a political game they're trying to play instead of sit down and really negotiate. Anybody that utilizes that notion, where in the bill does it say we cut veterans? And so I came back to the president and I said, do you not believe that there's any money being spent in government that's wasteful? Do you not find where? And remember how the system works. If we come to an agreement, we get a top-line number. And then Republicans and Democrats get together and decide how to spend the money, how to dole it up. It's like any other household. You have a set amount of money, and you prioritize. So I think if somebody has a set amount of money, the first thing they're going to pay is the house payment or the rent, right? We're going to pay the most important things first, and then we'll find places that we spend money. Think about how much money we're spending now. And the real question will be is, are we going to break ourselves? $31 trillion in debt, and you don't think we should find some place where we could find savings? Do you think it's too crazy that we go back to what we were spending 5 months before? I think people were pretty happy at that moment.
So what was the tone? What was the tenor and tone of the meeting?
It was polite. It was discussing people's different opinion and talking to one another.
He just said you got angry during the meeting. Is that true?
I think he got angry.
But there was anger.
He said 3 of the 4 participants were measured. He didn't say who the 4th was.
Well, if you ever spent time with Schumer, you'd find out who the 4th is. So,
What did he get angry about?
yeah, you let him figure it out.
Did you get angry?
No, I mean, from the approaches, the House has passed the bill. We raised the debt ceiling. Is it frustrating that the leader of the free world would wait this long and put America in some type of jeopardy? That does make me angry, to be honest with you. But I don't get angry in a meeting.
What about the timeline? You mentioned 2 weeks.
Well, I just think the Senate, of how they have to turn something around, yeah.
And June 1 is what you're...
Look, Janet Yellen decides that. That's what she said. That's what the date is.
After today, do you get the sense that Biden will have to sign some version of the GOP bill?
Oh, yeah. But listen, government is designed to find negotiation and compromise. And that's what you do when you get together. That happens on every bill to become law. That's the way the framers designed our country. That's the way it works.
Did George Santos tell you personally about the indictment? We saw him leaving your office earlier today.
No, he was there. I didn't know why he was there. He hadn't been in the office. Yeah. I found out when I came back.
On the veterans thing, you just said over here that it was a lie. Did you use that word in the room with the president?
Yes.
Did you call him a liar?
I didn't call him a liar. I said, if you're saying we're cutting, that's a lie. I wouldn't call the president a liar. Thank you all. Have a good day.